You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Welcome back to the program. I'm joined now by Senator Jonathan Dismang. He is the co-chair of the Joint Budget Committee. Always good to see you.
Hey,
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Congratulations on your re-election too. I mean, it wasn't that close, but you know, I mean, you still got out there and ran, and I appreciate it. And appreciate your opponent making you work. So that's good. Governor Asa Hutchinson, right after the election, kicks out his mandatory balanced budget for the next biennium. He's not going to be there to deal with it. You get to be there to deal with it. Kind of give me a little bit of what you thought was appropriate in that budget and what you think is probably going to change.
Well, I mean, I think we looked at increases in education, K through 12 in particular. That's something that is going to happen. Both of the adequacy reports, there's one version for the House, one version for the Senate. Both of them, had increases in place, in particular for teacher pay. And so I think that was part of his call and something that we'll also take up. In addition to that, I think we were looking at some various programs that he wanted to prioritize as he was leaving office. Some of those reflected some legislative priorities too, prison expansion being one of them. And so again, I think, we asked for some details on his proposal, a little bit scarce in those details, but that's understandable as he's, leaving office at this point.
There were some concerns expressed about a potential recession or something that feels like a recession, maybe the first half of next year. Is that going to make you guys extra cautious, you think? I mean, you err on the side of caution just from my previous experience.
Right. Yeah, that and also just we're in a completely different environment as far as the budget. In the past when we budget, we've had 2% growth, 3% growth. That's something that's very easy to account for. Now we're in this high inflation, inflationary period, and in some sectors are going to have 20, 30% increase. Others are going to have a much lower, and being able to figure out how we're going to plug that into the budget is going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot more challenging than anything we've done before. And so, yeah, I do believe that we're going to be cautious, but we've been cautious, and we've been able to establish some reserve accounts that hopefully, if this recession does come, that we'll be in a better spot than maybe some of our neighboring states.
You got a couple $2 billion in reserves there. Does the new governor, Sarah Sanders, has she given you guys any budget priorities? And tell me where some of that might come from.
Not at this point. I mean, again, she's talked some about education. I think there's been some talk about prison expansion also by her. Those are obviously policy decisions that are going to impact our spending that we have here in the state. But as far as direct, no, we've not had those discussions at this point. And in fact, we've got so many new members in both chambers that it's going to be really interesting to figure out where we want to go policy-wise, which is ultimately going to increase spending or impact spending, and then also on the flip side of that, what do we want to do with tax cuts? Because those two things are going to kind of work against each other, and we're really going to have to prioritize.
Yeah, you got about a third of the legislature overall is brand new.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk about price tag for some of these education things. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of push for teacher pay increases, average salary increases. The governor put, I think, about $550 million in that proposed budget that he put forward. First of all, you think that's enough money? And second of all, do you think that you guys will give a $4,000 pay raise and raise that minimum teacher salary?
Yeah, and I think really, I think minimum teacher salary should really be the focus, at least for me, that it is, because I think everything else will take care of itself as you move through that. The $4,000, I think, is
for that minimum salary?
I'm not sure at this point. So if we're just going to look at White County school districts, they're all roughly $40,000 in a starting salary. I think somewhere along that ballpark, and we can get into the weeds with the Education Committee as they deliberate in the session. As far as the $4,000, I think that was something that was in both of the adequacy recommendations. The discussion is really, when should that take place? Do we go redo and impact what we've already done in contracts, or we do set that in a date forward? And again, we're not at a place at this time that I think we know the answer to that.
That'll be the conversation.
That's it, absolutely.
All right. Also, too, I think there's a lot of push for what some folks call education savings accounts, other people call voucher programs. How much do you think that will expand in this session? You've been an advocate of
I have, and I do think it will expand mainly, and to me it's more about parental choice and being able to make decisions for the family that's best for the kids, and then later on the students. And I'm not sure, again, we're waiting to hear back, I think, from the incoming administration of what they see. I know it's going to be a priority to them. I do see that expanding, especially for lower income families, creating some more opportunity and hopefully more potential for those families.
Price tag will come with that, though.
It will, and again, but that's all going to be in the details of how that's worked out. You know, in the past, as a bill I've ran in before, it was actually a tax cut, and those savings accounts are then created and allowed to fund scholarships. I'm not sure if that will be the vehicle that we utilize. I wouldn't be shocked if we do expand that, especially for those low-income families. But again, I have not heard any details from the administration or new administration of what they want to do.
Let's talk tax cuts. Again, you may have to wait on the new administration for that, but I also know that legislators are going to do what legislators are going to want to do there. Do we attack the used car tax in this session? Do we attack reducing that top income tax rate and corporate tax rate from where they are now? Do you think we sit since we already accelerated that?
Well, I think, number one, I don't think we should do anything out of the gate in the session. I think, you know, we've talked about this recession probably coming in the first of next year. We'll be in session. I think we'll have a better idea of what's happening, and that'll allow us to know what we're able to do. We do have these sizable surplus accounts, and, you know, that allows us to maybe take a little bit more risk than we normally would in the past before those existed. But I think it'll be something that we determine later on, and no, I think that, you know, income administration has been clear about one thing, and that's that they want to focus on the income tax. Yeah, I think the vast majority of the legislators want to do that. And I know there's always an appetite or a want to change used car or maybe some other items. I just don't think with how big the price tag for those items would be versus the desire to do something on income taxes, I think we'll focus on income taxes.
You're going to have a fight on your hands on that one. You know?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
All right. Last week we had Senator Bart Hester on our Talk Business and Politics show. I mentioned to him where's the money going to come from for a 1,000-bed prison increase for the state prisons. He said 1,000 beds, 3,000 beds. You heard that interview. You saw that. Are we going to create 3,000 new prison beds, and if so, where does that money come from?
I'm not sure that 3,000 will be the number, and I don't know what the number should be. I know we set aside about $75 million so far to do some expansion and create some new bed space. I think we need to look at what we're doing with our county jails, and also just in general, you know, I'm not sure what the number is going to be, but we're going to let the facts of what the need is drive that, I believe.
All right. State Senator Jonathan Dismang, he will chair the Joint Budget Committee. I have a feeling you and I are going to have a lot of conversations on the record.
Look forward to it.
In this. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right. We're back with more right after that, after this, including Congressman Steve Womack. Stay tuned.